This year, Muslims in Maharashtra decided that they would not sacrifice animals on Bakra Eid because it coincided with Ashadi Ekadashi, a festival in which Hindus are fasting and it is considered to be a sacred festival. This thoughtful example has set a good narrative for the long run. It is an outstanding example of participatory narrative building, which is much required among the Indian Muslim community today. Welcome to The Matrix. Ever since Indian independence, Muslim community in India has been building a victimhood narrative. Ulema and Muslim intellectuals have raised voice against the injustices. This is a fair practice, but the problem is that Indian Muslim community speaks only when Muslims are in trouble, not otherwise. Why is it that we do not hear Muslim voices on other issues of national importance? In this episode of Matrix, we'll delve into this issue. And today I have with me Mr. Abdul Rahman, who's a lawyer in Supreme Court, as my guest in the studio. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you, after 9/11 attacks, Muslims in the Western world suffered quite a bit, but they built a positive narrative for themselves, and now we see there is a reduction in hatred towards the community. Do you think that Indian Muslims can learn from their experiences?
Very much so. And what you just said, I caught a very interesting piece in your declaration, which was a victimhood narrative built up by Muslims. It presupposes, I think, the fact that there is a narrative built up by Muslims, Indian Muslims, and that narrative is not constructive. It's a bad narrative. And I agree with you entirely. You see, then you said that the mullahs and ulemas, they raise voice for Muslims, the Muslim community in India, but they do it only when the Muslims are in trouble and not when there is an incident of Taliban doing something to the world or a terrorist strike somewhere by Muslims.
Or there's a train accident in Odisha where hundreds of people have died.
Yes.
You know, a statement of sympathy will go a long way.
So I would say that most of the ills of Indian Muslims, Indian Muslim community, and most of the problems they are faced with emanate from the fact that we have what I always call mulladom, which means Muslim clergy. And most of the problems faced by Muslims emanate from the activities of these Muslim ulemas and mullahs, because over the period of about 200 years, or I will say that especially from the times of Aurangzeb, these ulemas have created for themselves a hegemony, some kind of a hegemony over Muslims, and they rejoice in the fact that it's their writ that runs in the community. Muslims do what they ask them to do, and in order to continue and preserve this hegemony of theirs, they are concerned only with their continued survival and the survival of their supremacy over Muslims. And another thing is that, you know, most of the Muslims in this country are semi-literate or totally illiterate.
Right.
And religion being such a sensitive subject, they look up to these mullahs and the Muslim clergy for their deliverance and for everything, for them to pronounce the ways in which they have to lead their lives. And the mullahs use the fear psychosis created by them through the concepts of hell and punishment by God in case of disobedience of religion and disobedience of the mullahs. So this kind of atmosphere that has been created by the clergy, you see, I refer to what the Christian clergy did during the Dark Ages, which the Western Europeans themselves call the Dark Ages.
Right.
Because the entire society, entire Western society was governed by the clergy, and it ran according to their whims and fancies. What they said was done. And if not done, the disobedient was punished to the extreme. And so the entire period of history when clergy ruled supreme is now known as the Dark Ages. But the same thing happened with the Muslims throughout the world after the 16th century, when this Muslim clergy evolved. And especially in case of India, the problem is manifold because of the fact that we have so many sects, and then now we are having subsects of those sects. And it is very commonly said and accepted by the ulemas and the clergy that it is impossible for the Muslims to get united on a single point. You see? And the narrative that you are talking about, the kind of narrative that the Muslims are supposed to build for their future and for their political survival in the country, seems a totally unattainable goal in the present circumstances.
Right. So, like, I asked you about the Western example. We'll talk about it later. But tell me that, why is it that only a few political leaders, it gives an impression that they are representing the entire community, which is not a fair point. That's not a fair thing. So what can be done to ensure that the ulama and intellectuals play a bigger role and a more constructive role, in the sense that we are talking about how if there is a rail accident in Odisha and hundreds of Indians have died, they could always come out and give a statement of sympathy, of solidarity. But this doesn't happen. How can we make this happen? What are your views on that?
See, it's a very desirable scenario. What you're suggesting is really very desirable, but at the same time, the formula that you're suggesting is almost impossible, because there is a dichotomy between the mullahs, the clergy, and what we call the intelligentsia of the community. For one thing, the intelligentsia is much less in number than is required by the Muslim population, which now stands at around more than 220 crores. So, if you think that by bringing intellectuals together with clergy will solve any problem, I would say it will not. Because of the fact that, for one thing, both the intellectuals as well as the mullahs have been at loggerheads right from the beginning. I'll give you an example of the insensitivity of this clergy, this mulladom of ours. During the British period, the British asked the Muslim mullahs, the Muslim leaders, what kind of a law would they prefer to have for their own community, and they said, we are supposed to follow Shariat and we will follow only the Shariat law. So, in their honesty, in all fairness, they very honestly enacted a law called Shariat Application Act. It was done in 1937. And the same act now applies to Muslims, against which there is a cry for the uniform civil code.
Right.
But after independence, no Muslim leader, no Muslim mullah, no ulema, and no Muslim organization tried to present before the public as well as the government a set of rules which they would call Shariat and which could be followed by Muslims in general. All of them, all of the Muslims.
Right.
No, they did never even try to encode or to codify what they call Shariat. And now this, in 1972, they made this Muslim Personal Law Board, which claims to be the protector of Shariat. They say, Tahaffuz Shariat, we protect Shariat. And their only function so far, since their inception in 1972, has been to cry wolf anytime the government wants to, any government, do anything which pertains to civil laws or family laws. They will come out shouting, oh, there is a danger, Shariat is in danger, and they are
even in terms of education, you see,
in terms of
in the last UPA government, when the government was trying to make reforms in the education system in the madrasas, bring in more kind of making it more diverse. There was stiff opposition from various quarters.
Yes.
So it was stalled.
You're right. So this kind of attitude shown by the Muslim organization, especially an important organization, so far as Muslims are concerned, their civil laws are concerned, their family laws are concerned, and they themselves seem to be totally confused about it, and they never made any sincere attempt to codify the Shariat. I mean, to codify it in the sense that a set of rules codified and put before the government saying that this is our Shariat, which we would not like to be intervened in, or which we would like to be disturbed by any other laws, because Article 25 of the Constitution guarantees freedom of the religion and preaching of the religion and everything. At the same time, they should also have thought. You see, there is another point of dispute, very dangerous point of dispute, and that is Uniform Civil Code. Because they should have realized that there is this Article 44 in the Constitution of India, and it would raise its head one day, because it is almost in the form of an imperative. The state shall endeavor to make a uniform civil code.
Right, and now even the Supreme Court has,
and the Supreme Court, many a time, Supreme Court has very strongly said that, instructed the government, asked the government, why haven't you done anything about it so far? Because it's a very important directive principle of state policy.
Sure.
But no Muslim intellectual, not even intellectual, thought about the problem, or it was a kind of sort of Damocles hanging over their head. They never thought about it. It was to come, and now it has come. And the government would be in their rights if they, of course, the Uniform Civil Code, enacting a Uniform Civil Code in itself is a big problem, considering the various customs prevalent among Hindus themselves. And there is a large majority of Hindus who are not going to accept a uniform civil code.
But now, Abdul Rahman Sahab, let me come back to the topic we are listening to. Constructing a narrative, an appropriate narrative for Indian Muslims. You spoke about the mullahs and ulama, but I also find that the Muslim intellectuals somehow, barring a few, intellectuals, most of the intellectuals have also lost their sense of balance. They are also towing, the line which the ulamas are taking. They should be at least seen as speaking on national issues, or issues of importance. Whenever there's a crisis, their voice should be heard, but that's not happening. Perhaps our intelligentsia is getting aged, they're aging. So do you think there is a need to, prepare next generation of intellectuals who are forward-looking and who can create a constructive narrative for the Indian Muslims?
See, as far as intelligentsia and the intellectuals among Muslims are concerned, as I said in the beginning, that there is a very sharp dichotomy between our ulemas and our intellectuals, and both know that they are absolutely incompatible with each other.
Right.
They cannot live together.
Sure.
The negative effect of this dichotomy was the attitude of the intelligentsia and the intellectuals. They have distanced themselves absolutely from the ulema class, from the clergy, and thinking that let them survive in their own right, and let them stew in their own soup, because they are incorrigible and there is absolutely nothing we can do about them.
Right.
The problem, I would say, they are not very much unjustified in their approach, considering the fact that the majority of Muslims are spellbound by the clergy, by the ulema, and intelligentsia and intellectuals are stamped as opposed to religion.
Right. So they
If
have a
not-
modern thought in them. So therefore
Yes.
they are opposing.
They call them irreligious, if not outrightly atheists.
Right.
But they say, "Oh, he's a pura likha man. He's got nothing to do with religion."
Right. Right. But then, sir, we see that the ulama on their own cannot construct a postmodern narrative for Muslims in India. That's for sure. So, it has to be collective effort on the
Yes.
part of both intellectuals and ulama. Now, it has to be seen how this can be done. But let me come to another point and ask you about your views. That recently in Maharashtra, on the occasion of Bakr Eid, the Muslims of Maharashtra in at least 20 places, they have shown a true sense of sacrifice. And on the occasion of Bakr Eid, they decided that they're going to postpone animal sacrifice by a day, because there's a provision in Islam that you can sacrifice animal on 3 days. So they did it because the Bakr Eid was coinciding with Ashadi Ekadashi, which is a very, very sacred
Yes.
festival of Hindus, and it's a big festival in Maharashtra. Do you think such gestures are important for Muslim community to create, to make certain adjustments where they can, and it'll go a long way in building goodwill for them?
Very much so. But as far as the gesture that you just mentioned is concerned, the only unfortunate thing is that this gesture has come at a time when Muslims everywhere in the country are concerned with their survival. It has been born not out of a goodwill or fair thinking, but out of a fear for life. The kind of atmosphere that the Muslims find themselves in these days has alerted them to certain dangers. And these same Muslims used to be so adamant about the Tazia procession and things like that, and they used to be very arrogantly said, "No, Julus yahin se jayega." These things were very common, but now the atmosphere has changed because of the thinking and attitude of the
Yes,
present
I
government.
get your point. But sir, if we talk about these incidents, India, of course, is a large country. We cannot deny that there have been aberrations and there have been, instances of violence against Muslims. But if you see the larger picture, we are so much far better than Muslims in so many other countries. So, we should take solace in that. And as far as such gestures are concerned, these are the gestures which are going to change the narrative. Once you start doing such things, even the Hindus and other communities will think, that they're going out of their way, and they are now changing with the changing times. And as we all know, change is always for good. And so now let me ask you another question. Since you have traveled extensively in the world, and you've also taught in foreign countries, what have been your experiences while you observed Muslim community interacting with the Western world? Are there any lessons from there for us?
Yes, there are so many lessons to be learned from them. But before I go into that, what you just said has reminded me of another aspect of the problem so far as Indian Muslims are concerned, and I'm personally very much concerned with that.
Yes.
Recently, Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, speaking at their conclave, RSS conclave in Goa, he said, Muslims don't have to fear anything. They can survive with us, they can live in the country peacefully, but they have to shed off their sense of supremacy.
Right.
And that is actually the main problem. You see, anybody follows a particular faith or religion because he thinks that is the right faith.
Right.
To say or to think or to believe that your faith is a true faith is quite natural. But you cannot go around declaring your faith to be the only true faith, because by implication you are saying that the faith followed by the others are false. This is the kind of supremacy that he was referring to, and which I would also personally condemn totally. I am a Muslim. I'm in lover that this Muslim tag is attached to my name also.
Right.
And I'm not against religion at all, although I'm a non-practicing Muslim.
Right.
But still I respect religion, but I respect other people's religion also. And it has always been my stand that you should never declare publicly and go out and shouting at the top of your voice, ours is the only true faith.
So perhaps we do not actually know. We do not actually know what was on his mind. But at one level, you see, Roman Sahib, we see that, when we talk about Muslim supremacy, we are perhaps talking about those group of people who are the Al-Qaedas and the ISIS, who think that, they have these notions of conquering the world and, utopian ideas of reestablishing caliphate. So perhaps that could be one aspect of it. Now, let me get back to my question on what we are discussing about your experiences in the Western world. If you can throw some light on that.
Yes, I would say that my experiences in Europe, be it in UK or in Germany, Italy, Belgium, France, where I observed Muslims living very peacefully with the Westerners. And it was not until these pictures of the Prophet and cartoons of the Prophet kind of problems that arose, that they lived very peacefully with each other, and nobody is there bothered with the faith that you are following or with the religion that your name is tagged with or whatever, because each one has a respect for the other person's not only faith but opinions, lifestyle and everything. And that atmosphere, I think, is more conducive to peaceful living. Even see, it's also a problem in our country. Although I'm very proud of India, I'm a proud Indian because it's a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, multi. See, it's really a wonder. There's so many ethnicities, so many religions, so many languages, so many cultures survive at the same time.
Sure.
It's a matter of pride. But in order for them to survive peacefully with each other, we have to have the kind of atmosphere that you observe in the Western countries, where nobody is trying to establish their supremacy over the others, and where actually law prevails, rule of law prevails. So my experiences, as you ask me, have been very positive and very satisfying.
So let me ask you, since you referred to those incidents where the Charlie Hebdo incident, recently I was listening to one Muslim scholar from the United States, and he said the Muslims, the way they reacted at that point of time was uncalled for, because he said that's his point of view, that there is no picture of Prophet. So why did you pay so much attention on this? That there is a picture. So that is also a point of view. So there's different ways of looking at things. Let me now ask you that, sir, how do you think? How can we construct a positive narrative for Indian Muslims?
Well, first of all, I would say that Muslims need education, because illiteracy is the root cause of many evils, and no political solution will solve the problems born out of illiteracy.
Right.
So you need to have, I'll give you an example. We are going to have Bakra Eid tomorrow. Now, sacrificing animals on Bakra Eid is not a prime duty as far as religion goes, right? It's a sunnah, which can be done. I won't go into a clash of faith, because I personally belong to a particular sect or thinking about religion, where we believe that sacrifice was made compulsory only for the persons who go to Hajj, to perform Hajj in Saudi Arabia, and not for everybody.
Right.
But I look at it from a different angle. The amount of money spent each year by Indian Muslims on sacrificing animals for Bakra Eid is enough. I once made a calculation on a calculator. Amount is enough to establish 3 schools, 2 colleges, 1 medical college, which would be a very constructive thing for the entire community to do.
Right.
But nobody would listen to that. No, this is our religious duty. And so this, now education, first of all, education, intellectuals should try to establish schools, colleges, and educate Muslim masses as much as possible, because without that, no solution suggested by you or me will work.
Sure. Now, let me ask you that you've taught in foreign countries, do you think whenever, and you've taught law, whenever an Indian Muslim is on the wrong side of the law, is indulging in heinous acts of crime, ulama and intellectuals should be vocal in the criticism of such crimes?
Yes, very much. In fact, they should be even more vocal about offenses and crimes committed by the Muslims than they would be or are about others who commit those same crimes. Again, because Islam is considered to be a faith of peace.
Right.
So if a Muslim commits an offense or a crime which disturbs the peace, I think he is more at fault than any other person who is not following the faith.
Sure. So now tell me that ulama, they come out on streets whenever there are atrocities on the ummah. For example, Palestinians. And, they do it because the religion demands it, that whenever there is a crisis on ummah, they should speak. But our ulama rarely speak up when Hindu minorities are targeted in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And Islam gives high importance to your relations with your neighbors. And Indian Hindus are immediate neighbors. And they must be expecting, a word of sympathy, a statement of sympathy, some words of solidarity with them when their people from their community are targeted in other countries. But this never happens. Do you think this needs to change? People should condemn.
And it's condemnable also. It's condemnable also because it's based entirely upon their religious prejudices. See, Islam says murder of a man, a single man, is murder of the entire mankind.
Yes.
So the entire mankind includes non-Muslims, all non-Muslims, be they Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, or whatever.
Right.
So if any atrocity is committed against any human being, they should be as much vocal as they are in case of a Muslim.
Right. Are Indian Muslims any lesser Indians than any other citizen? Then why are they only expected to speak when Muslims are in trouble? Perhaps the reply would be that there is nobody else to raise the voice for Muslims in India. But for this situation to change, there needs to be a change in the mindset. There is an urgent need for Indian Muslims to work on a meaningful narrative which can best define them in this great nation. Next week on Awaz-The Voice, you could read articles on adopting best Muslim practices in the world. To read our content, type www.awazthevoice.in. We'll be back with another interesting episode very soon. Now I wish to thank my guest, Abdul Rahman Saab. Thank you very much for being here. So we'll be back next week. Till then, goodbye from the Matrix team.